Gentleman from Georgia is recognized. Mr. Clyde.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this important hearing. First, let me correct the record of the ranking member's clearly false diatribe, filled with inaccuracies and a personal attack on our highly esteemed and highly capable and very hardworking OMB Director, Russ Vogt.
Wait, would the gentleman yield? What was the attack? I'm just pointing out he hasn't
No,
testified.
I will not yield. The One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cut Act, was mischaracterized as forcing people off health care. Well, when you cloak illegal aliens as the people being removed, I think Americans approve, because we are protecting taxpayer funds, which should go to citizens and not illegal aliens. Now, as our national debt approaches $40 trillion, Washington is long overdue for fiscal discipline. This is no longer just irresponsible, it's dangerous, and it needs to end. To put this in perspective, this year, the federal government expects $5.6 trillion in revenue, but plans to spend $7.4 trillion, a $1.8 trillion deficit. More than $1 trillion will go to interest payments alone, funding no services or investments. No private business could operate this way, yet this is our fiscal path, our current fiscal path. And it would be much worse if we had not passed the One Big Beautiful Bill. This trajectory is unsustainable. Global markets will not finance U.S. deficits indefinitely. If confidence in our ability to repay erodes, we risk a sovereign debt crisis with serious negative consequences for pensions, banks, and federal programs. That is why we need a clear fiscal benchmark to reassure bond markets. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, along with financial leaders like Ray Dalio and Warren Buffett, have supported limiting deficits to 3% of GDP to stabilize debt growth and restore credibility. While ultimately our country would benefit from a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, which the House voted on last week, and every Democrat in this committee opposed, the 3% debt to GDP ratio would be a good start to achieving a balanced budget in the future. The American people elected President Trump to restore trust in government and rein in waste, fraud, and abuse. The recently enacted One Big Beautiful Bill, Working Family Tax Cuts Act, includes meaningful deficit reduction measures by rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse in mandatory spending programs, saving billions over the next decade. However, as we have seen with the Somali fraud scandal in Minnesota, there is still much more waste, fraud, and abuse that congressional Republicans need to repeal in the federal budget that can help achieve the 3% debt to GDP ratio. Mr. Couchman, every Democrat on the Budget Committee and every Democrat except one in the Democrat caucus voted against a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution on the House floor last week. Given that states like my home state of Georgia are required to balance their budgets, what justification is there for Congress refusing to impose the same discipline on itself?
Congress should have a balanced budget requirement. It is normal in countries around the world. Virtually every country in Europe has a balanced budget requirement. All of the states except for Vermont has a balanced budget requirement. Most are constitutional, some are statutory, some are both. And they've usually gotten them after a period of debt crisis, and that's been part of getting out of them. Hopefully the federal government and Congress can have one before we get to the crisis.
Thank you. I agree with that. Mr. Burks, what are the consequences of a sovereign debt crisis on federal programs, the financial markets, and hardworking families' bottom line?
Certainly. Thank you for the question. Obviously, if we are in a debt crisis and unable to finance additional spending, we will have immediate and painful benefit cuts for programs that we all recognize are valuable, whether that be Social Security or Medicare, and we're on track for those trust funds to be exhausted in the near term. And so Congress is going to have to take action in order to ensure that there's not a debt crisis and that there are not unwanted cuts to those programs.
Thank you. Ms. McGinnis, can you describe how the One Big Beautiful Bill Act slowed the growth in Medicaid spending due to efforts to root out waste, fraud, and abuse? And what additional measures of waste, fraud, and abuse can Congress focus on in another reconciliation package, which I am a great proponent of, that will continue to slow the growth of federal spending and bend it towards our 3% debt to GDP ratio goal?
Sure. So the savings that were in the One Big Beautiful Bill on the Medicaid side were important because there were a lot of efforts to change the way there were abuses to the system through provider taxes, people who shouldn't have been collecting benefits. These were sensible changes overall that Medicaid's still growing, is going to be growing faster than the economy, faster than inflation. But they needed to happen. This was a gimmick. One of the main areas of savings was a gimmick where states were able to levy taxes on the providers of health care, reap some of those benefits, and then have a bigger match from the federal government. This is a kind of change that didn't actually affect the program. However, overall, the One Big Beautiful Bill added to deficits quite significantly. And I really want to focus on waste, fraud, and abuse without ignoring the fact that we can't make changes without looking at the bigger parts of the budget. There are overpayments, there are inefficiencies, there are abuses of the system, but we're first going to have to look at where some of the biggest inefficiencies are, which I think DOGE didn't successfully do. We need to look in the healthcare arena, the defense procurement arena. We need to go after where those dollars are. And even then, I want to be really clear, we will not fix this problem unless we look at the revenues and the spending portion of the budget. There's no free lunch here to be had. Our government should be as efficient as possible, but we can't pretend we can do it all with waste, fraud, and abuse.
Well, thank you for that, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentlewoman from California is recognized. Ms. Chu.
Before I begin, I'd like to give Mr. Boyle a chance to respond to the falsehood that was just said.
Well, I thank Ms. Chu.